Hello everybody. Today I want to talk about Powercreep. Made a community post on it last night asking my community if they'd like a video on this and my thoughts, and 80% have voted yes, so here I am. Powercreep. This is a very, drama intensive topic usually in the CC space, as many will be disingenuous at times, saying characters literally don't work the second they're power crept, and there's another side who will, say that power creep doesn't affect anything in this game and it needs to happen, right? And I think both sides are in the wrong. I'm in the middle. I think that the power creep is absolutely egregious, always have admitted this, but that older characters usually still are pretty usable against endgame content unless you literally invest nothing into their vertical investment and you're using like the oldest, worst DPSs possible, right? But power creep in this game is bad nonetheless. The Hera was an interesting beta at the time, where it was one of the few betas where people didn't really complain, right? Hera was so universally strong, and obviously stronger than any other DPS we've had before, that people were probably the most satisfied with a DPS I've ever seen people satisfied. And then Hera also got Tribby, then she got Anaxa, she also got shielded by Endgame, everything was basically glorified pure fiction, but the leakers and the Zero Cyclers were also glazing her, saying that, wow, like this is the unit, right? Free to play friendly, restriction isn't as bad as Acheron's, stronger Eidolons, stronger horizontal investment with upcoming Tribby. I mean, she truly is special, right? But if we were to fast forward to 2 days' time, how does she hold up against the new strongest team? Well, the new strongest team is more than twice as strong as Hera's premium team. And this is a questionable decision by Hoyoverse for sure, in my opinion. I actually think Amphorius DPSs were all pretty decently balanced at a close enough power level until we got to this entire Cassie shilling, and as well as the introduction of Evernight and Cyrene, right? Remove Evernight and Cyrene from the entirety of Amphorius and their power level, and almost all the Amphorius DPSs are at pretty similar power levels, and they all have their own advantages, right? But this doesn't really work anymore. Evernight main DPS is basically the strongest main DPS in the entirety of the game, if you don't include Cassie's full team of sub DPSs. But if you do, then yes, Cassie's premium team is stronger than an Evernight team, right? But it's simply a little disappointing that Hoyo seems to have this crazy amount of favoritism when it comes to their anniversary characters. Now, from a business standpoint, it does make sense. They probably get the most returning players on anniversaries, so that means more people are going to pull on anniversaries. So they really want to shill a character and as well shill their best in slot teammates so that people can constantly keep upgrading this team. And well, that's FOMO for you, and it just does work. I mean, just look at the Casterus team. People went from pulling Tribby for Casterus, now they're going to pull Cyrene for Casterus, then they pulled Evernight for Casterus, yada yada yada. They're going head, toes in, all the way deep to be able to get that full premium Cassie team that's the best in the game, right? And this leads to another thing that I've been talking about lately, being niche supports, right? And my issue with them in this game, and I will be using Cyrene as an example. However, keep in mind, Cyrene isn't the only example of this. I still hold the same thoughts on Ceridra, that she's also a pretty hard bait pull nonetheless, right? Which a lot of people are like, oh, that's crazy. But once again, let it sink in that Hera and Cassie are in the same version, and Cassie's premium team is more than twice as strong as Hera, who was once hailed as the strongest DPS in this game, right? Even if it was for a short amount of time. So hopefully this can help you guys understand my point of view on this entire topic a little more, and why it is I hate niche supports and why I value general ones so much more. Because yes, while general supports will obviously get power crept, I mean, look at Ruan Mei Tribi, the reality is that Ruan Mei still has incredible general value and can still work with so many different teams that if you don't have a full best in slot team for a new character, slotting in Mei most of the time will just work semi-effectively, right? On top of this, Mei has DDD spam. She can use DDD, which is a very, very nice amount of action advance for your team every here and then. She can also give you weakness break efficiency increase, which is massive for an endgame mode like, let's say, APOC. She also gives a bit of a speed boost to all allies on the team, which can make speed tuning a little easier for you all. All of this, Cyrene does not offer. Cyrene has similar buffing capability once she has everything up to a Mei, but she doesn't have any of the other side advantages, such as speed increase for the team, weakness break efficiency increase, DDD, because she's Remembrance. She can't take advantage of any of this. And keep in mind, Ruan Mei is completely free because she's given in the golden tokens, and I believe E1 Mei actually has a higher ownership rate as compared to E0 Mei, which is pretty crazy. But you guys kind of get the point, right? Cyrene's value, short term, looks very strong, right? The same with Zhao Q, the same with Fugue, the same with any fucking niche support when their DPS is at the top at the time. But once you start considering the future, it's an entirely different story. If she's a downgrade over Mei, then a lot of people just simply aren't going to be using Cyrene in the future outside of Chrysos Air / Remembrance teams. And if this is the case, then why pull, right? Why pull? Especially when you see things like Herta's weaker, or more than half as weak as a Cassie Premium team, and this is within the same version, by the way, not even two different versions. You can only imagine that the exact same thing would repeat itself in version 4, considering leakers have said, well, there's already a full Premium Elation battleship team being in the works for Yae Sakura, which is Mono Elation, right? So she's basically the next Cassie. And if she ends up doing, well, more than twice the damage of Cassie, well, that's gonna really fucking suck, right? That's gonna really fucking suck. On top of this, it's not like, you know, Yae Sakura's the only one in that patch. There's also Himiko SP. She's rumored to be the second main push. If I remember correctly, she is Destruction. And, yeah, I mean, she's probably also going to be completely busted. Probably not Yae Sakura level, but basically what Phanon is for the current version, which, as you guys all know, has god tier vertical investment and is incredibly strong generally, right? So, this is the issue I have with this game's power creep. It's not more so about, you know, clearing endgame content or whatever. It's about getting the most value out of your pulls and why it's so difficult in this game given its power creep. If it were to be, let's say, 30 to 40% power creep yearly, which to be honest is still decently noticeable, but at least it's doable, right? You can still make the argument Cyrene is a worth it pull, vertical investment on these older characters is a worth it pull, you make them last way longer, and they won't fall off of the meta and clearing endgame content for probably doubly to triple the amount of time as compared to right now. But because this isn't the case, and the power creep is so goddamn rampant when it comes to specifically the anniversary characters, it questions niche characters' values, right? Should I really invest into a luxury pull support who can't even shine if you don't have a full Mono Airs team, right? Let's be honest, most free-to-plays don't have two full free-to-play Mono Airs teams, so they're only really going to be able to take good advantage of Cyrene in one of their air teams for probably an average of 25 to 30% jump, and then the second we enter the new version, well, the new DPS is probably already 25 to 30% or more stronger than anybody in version 2, right? This is what happened with basically the Herta. I would not be surprised in the slightest if this is what happened with Hanabi SP, as she's rumored to be the second half of 4.0, Once again, this doesn't only apply to Cyrene. This actually more so applies to Saridra, who gives a lesser jump to both of the DPSs that she mainly supports, being Anoxa and being Phanon. Technically, Cyrene gives a similar jump at like 14-15% for Phanon, and I believe Saridra gives like 20-25%, right, over Branya. And then you as well have Anoxa. He gets like a 19% jump from using Saridra, but I guess now it's more with Cyrene. But you kind of get the point, right? Once again, pieces to the puzzle. If you don't have all the pieces to the puzzle, one character's value drops immensely as compared to normal, and so it's kind of a go big or go home type of comp. But do you really want to go big or go home when you're right near the end of the version? And this is why I talk about Cyrene so much more than I do Saridra currently. At least Saridra was like 3.5. She's technically 3 patches away from the introduction of Edostar. But Cyrene, literally 1 patch after her release, we are going to be in 3.8 Pentacody, and 1 patch after, we are going to be in Edostar. So it's just very questionable to me whether or not a character like this is worth pulling on, especially considering her value is basically completely tied to one specific version's characters, right? The other thing that's kind of looming in the background is, well, Ruan Mei could actually get increased value soon. You have Constance being released in 3.8, rumored to be a break support. She's Fire Nihility, no different to Fugue, and they're probably aiming to make a mono Fire Firefly team with Sustain Ling Sha. But you could also use Sustainless with Ruan Mei, which a lot of people do with Super Break since it's pretty easy to run Sustainless, similar to Phanon basically. And if this happens and Constance is big enough as support, similar to like Heislands for Dot, on top of this, Firefly was rumored for a buff, you know, upcoming in the next batch, then it's 100% possible Firefly ends up being stronger than anybody in version 3, and then Ruan Mei stocks go even higher, right? Do you know how insane it is to say that if Firefly gets buffed and Constance is strong enough, Ruan Mei would have higher value than Cyrene? Like, it's genuinely a possibility, right? And I'm not trying to hate. It's just the truth, because they literally did this with Dot and Kafka, right? So let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. What are your thoughts on niche supports? What are your thoughts on, you know, this game's power creep? Is it as egregious as I think it is? I think it's really out of hand, and I think this is the main reason why I have as much of a grudge I do against niche supports, right? They just don't last in this game, right? It's not like Genshin, right? Where you could pull, like, let's say, some niche-ass support. What is it, Durin? Heinz Rickle Witches on the team or whatever, and then he massively increases their performance. Yeah, Genshin has very shilly endgame content and power creep, but yet it still doesn't compare to HSR. Like, it's not even fucking close. Like, I'm pretty sure Mavwika was like 30 to 40% power creep over any other teams in Genshin, if I remember correctly. Like, bro, that's, in HSR terms, that's nothing, man. Like, that literally happens every 2 patches, right? Like, that happens every 2 patches. That's nothing here. The power creep is so rampant that niche supports fucking suck, right? That's just my opinion. You guys can have your own opinions. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and peace out.